Hello and welcome to Roll with Advantage. My name is Joe, and boy, is it great to be here today. Today we have something a little bit different planned, something that I'm very excited to get back to, but in a strange turn of events, I am not going to be the person hosting this, and honestly, my involvement will be fairly limited, and that's something that I'm very excited for, but since it's not going to be something that I'm hosting, I figured that what I would do is I would allow the person who will be hosting it to introduce themselves, what this is, and what exactly will be going on here for the remainder of the run of this this little podcasty show thing we got going here. So, Brian, feel free to take it away.
All right, thank you, Joe. Like you said, I'm Ryan. I'm mainly known for playing Varnasten and Morwen in the Roll with Advantage campaigns, and Gideon as of recently in the Evrand campaign. Joe, we're bringing back Roll Call. Something
Woo!
that I know I've been missing.
Woo!
I loved Roll Call back when we did it, but we're changing the format up a little bit. We're not going to have as many guests on every episode like we used to, because we used to have like 5 or 6 per episode. We kind of got like 1 or 2 from each campaign. But this time it's going to be a little bit more kind of like intimate, a little bit more like one-on-one, maybe one-on-two, and we're going to have like kind of a deeper dive, just kind of more like relaxed conversation between us and these people. You know, that way we can kind of take like a really kind of deep dive into all of this stuff. So for the first episode, I wanted it to be you because you're the guy.
I'm the guy. I'm Elijah Wood in Spy Kids 3.
That's right. You know, did you know that on Elijah Wood's Wikipedia page, it's listed that he's known as being the guy before being known as listed as Frodo?
Honestly, I think I'm okay with that.
No, I mean, what else? Like, that's what Wikipedia is gold for.
Yeah.
For people to, like, you know, best known for playing the guy in Spy Kids 3D versus, you know, one of the greatest movie trilogies ever created. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. As much as I love Frodo, the guy is a much more fitting role for Elijah Wood.
Indeed. All right, but all jokes aside, Joe, like you said, you're the guy. We know that D&D is like a collaborative experience, and you know, what's a DM without good players? But at the end of the day, without a DM, there's no game. And without you, there's certainly no RWA. So first of all, thank you for everything you do on behalf of all the players and all the fans that we have. I'm sure that, you know, there's probably days where it gets really hard because there's so much to juggle and do. But I hope you know that we all love and appreciate it. So just sincerely thank you from all of us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm very appreciative of that. It is a lot of work, but I do really, really, really enjoy it. Believe me, I would not do it if I didn't enjoy it, especially because of how much work it is most of the time. But thank you. I appreciate that.
As someone who has DM'd, I believe you 100%, and I do not doubt you in the slightest. All right, Joe, but we're going to start with a pop quiz, and no cheating.
Oh, God. I'm nervous. Oh, God.
Between the 3 campaigns that you run, how many total episodes have been posted?
How many total episodes have been posted?
Yep, no cheating.
Oh, God. Okay, all right. So I know that Afera, as of this episode's recording of Roll Call, is at 69. Nice. So we have 69 for Afera. Isles that are posted right now. So that means the most recent session of Isles isn't out, which I believe was 48. So that means 47. So 47 plus 69. 100, it's 7 plus 9, 16, so 116. Salamander Coast is at, I think 54. So I said 116, so 120, 170?
All right, is 170 your final answer?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Joe, it was 171.
No, damn it!
Salamander Coast is 1055. Episode 55 was Boom.
Damn it! Oh, I'm so mad!
Hey, for the record, you're off by 1. I'm giving you the point.
Oh, thank you.
For the record, that was the only point that would be awarded on this show today, so it's a good thing you got it, because it was either 100% or a 0.
I love pass or fail classes.
Yeah, they're a little intimidating when you think about it, but for the most part, they're pretty sweet.
Okay, amazing. Well,
I want you to sit on that number for a second. 171 episodes between the 3 campaigns.
Oh my God.
I just really want you to kind of take that in for a second, because I had never done the math until today in preparation for this episode. And looking at that, I was like, Jesus. Because I know we still have a long way to go with all 3 of the campaigns. You know, we're not an inch away from the end on each of them. We still got a good chunk to go.
No, for real.
At least I assume so. I don't know anything, but I assume we have a pretty good chunk to go still.
Hey, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I can't say anything, but no, yeah, I feel
So in this period of time, 170,
Mm-hmm.
we'll just say 170 because it's easier to say than 171. But, 170 episodes, just
Yeah.
what do you wish you would have known at this point that you would have
Oh
known
my
from the beginning?
God.
Because 170, I didn't do the math on the hours because I cannot be bothered to do that. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours, Joe. It's easily over 500. It's easily over 500 hours.
Yeah, because let's see. I just on average a session, because some sessions run longer, some are shorter. That's almost 600 hours. I average like 3.5 hour sessions. That's like 600 hours of content. Oh God, baby DM Joe. Oh, so we'll say like right before Afera started. I think that for like if he was just starting to run Afera, I'd be like, listen, man, do yourself a favor, reanalyze the applications and just make sure that you're not missing out on anything. There's this really cool guy named Ryan, and Ryan deserves to play in this campaign.
I literally wrote a note saying, don't make fun of Joe for not picking you first. I literally wrote a note that I was not going to bring that up. That was not the point of this question. I want everyone to know that.
I know.
I was not baiting you into this.
I know. That's okay. But no, it stands though. It stands though. But anyway, regardless of that, I think that Joe, when he first started, I think that so two things. For one, he undervalued how good at this thing he was and how, successful it could be. Not to speak about myself in the third person, but I thought so I'm not going to speak about myself in the third person. I thought that when I was starting, I had the huge doubts and I was just so nervous and so scared. And I was so concerned about it. About like, well, what if it's not successful? What if I waste my time doing this thing? And one thing that I eventually realized is I was like, you're not wasting your time. You're playing D&D with some of your best friends and you're having so much fun. If 2 people watch any given episode and that's it, you still got to play some banging D&D for 4 hours, 4 days a week. You get to do that. So be happy about that. And I would tell myself that. From just like a running the channel perspective. As a DM, though, I would tell myself to not worry so much from session to session. Trust yourself and trust that you know what you're doing, and be confident about the choices that you make, because the moment you start to get wishy-washy or iffy on them is just this huge spiral into self-doubt about the whole thing. So like, be confident that you are good at this. And just have fun, just take a step back and realize that the streaming, the channel, that stuff in the grand scheme of things is amazing and great. But what's most important is playing this game with your friends. I think those are the 2 big things that I would tell myself starting out this journey, if you could call it that.
I really think that, we've talked about before about how you and I are cut from like very similar cloth, but I think a lot of us in RWA are, where I think by far and away we are our own worst critics. And we usually assume that if there's anything that's even semi going wrong or semi being stepped out of place, it's our fault. Yeah. Rather than recognizing that like maybe it's just the situation, or maybe like the pieces haven't come like perfectly together. But in D&D, it's such like a group storytelling experience that there's only so much you can do to kind of control the outcome. And again, I play in 2 of your campaigns. I play in Evrand with you. So Isles is the only one that I'm really not involved in, though I did love my guest spot, and thank you again for letting me do that.
Yeah. No, I love that. That was great. I was happy to do so.
Yeah. No, I mean, straight up, Joe, I mean, I've said this before, but you're the best DM that I've ever had. And I've had some pretty good DMs in the past that I wasn't sure could be beat, but I mean, you blow them all out of the water, just in terms of just like the love that you have for like the world that you've created. And it's not a prideful thing. It's not just like, oh my gosh, look how interesting these characters are, to where they're basically taking center stage, whereas your characters don't mean much. Because I've played in games where that's what it was, where the NPCs were really the main characters and we were just kind of watching them.
Yeah, and that's
not a fun time.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I get that, because I have had DMs in the past when I did do brief stints of playing where that did happen. and that's why even when I have important NPCs come up, like, the the poster child of hate mail of RWA, Emeril, whenever I have him come up, I'm always very conscious that, like, he's aiding the player characters do their thing. He's not the main story. Like, he's a big part of the story that the players and the characters are experiencing. He's not the main character. And considering how important he is, I try to make sure that that's, a very big, that's something I'm always taking into account whenever it comes up, because I pride myself on making sure that the story revolves around the player characters. The world's still alive around them, yeah, but the story revolves around them and their experiences and, their story that they're sort of unraveling and telling themselves.
And again, I think you're nailing that. I've never felt like my character was so big for their britches that they could just, kick down the door, talk to anyone in any way they want, and there would be no consequence. But at the same time, I do feel like the decisions that we've made and the plans that, as parties that we've created, you allow to have an effect on the world. It's not a guarantee that it's going to work, but you still allow it to happen, and you allow the events to play out, which, I think is a great side of a DM. It's not just you having some NPC being there, being like, no, that's a bad idea, pointing us in one unified direction. Like, you let us make our own decisions, like, for better or worse.
Yeah.
Which needs to happen in D&D.
Yeah, I try to poke and prod players as little as I can to different paths than what they want to, unless it's, like, really, really, really dangerous. Like, just for example, when Salamander Coast, when you guys were, some players were debating trying to, like bait the 13 into a trap. Mimir was like, "Oh, listen, brother, I don't know. That's a great idea. I think you might want to reevaluate. They're really powerful." Like, I really tried to be like, okay, let's not do that, please.
And I mean, that's another thing I really like about your style is that, because back when I joined SCI, I was a little nervous about Keothe, because usually I've not had good experiences with DM NPCs.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do feel like, it's the voice of the DM coming through, like, too strong.
Yeah.
Of, like, very much like, this is the direction that, I as God am not telling you to do, but, oh, look, this character that you really like is telling you what to do, so you want to listen to them. Which, don't get me wrong, Keothe is very likable, but I like the fact that sometimes she would just bring up information that, like, maybe we forgot. So instead of you as Joe being like, by the way, guys, don't forget, these guys are, like, super powerful, it would be Keothe. So it'd be someone in character kind of just, like, making us really think, like, hey, is that really what you want to do? Yeah, because maybe you're not considering this one thing.
At that point, it's like a video game tooltip,
Exactly. But, I mean, it works.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of DMs kind of fail with that, with their DM NPCs, because sometimes, I don't think there's anything worse than a DM NPC that's just created because the DM wants to participate in combat with the group, when that's literally the only reason they're there, is just to, like, take more turns in the combat.
Yeah.
Terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah, that's why I have, whenever those DM NPCs are there, which at that point I think that they're just, like, long-term NPCs, because it's not like, or DMPCs, I think is the term. I try to make sure that the players, for one, are running them in combat, and if they try to do something with the NPC that I'm like, no, that doesn't fit their character, I'll let them know. But other than that, I let the players run them during combat, gives them an extra turn that they can share. They can have that fun with. And, like, I've had NPCs where I've decided that they've been traveling with the party and the party comes to a decision, and I realize that I didn't prep something, and it throws off the entire story so far because of a decision that an NPC is trying to make and trying to convince the party to do, where it totally backfires in against my favor. It happened in Isles with Brandon, where he was like, no, we need to go to the city because those people are going to die if we don't go to the city. How many people countless lives are going to be lost. We don't need to go to this dwarvish ruin to find this artifact. We need to go save those people. And in my head the entire time, I was like, what the hell are you saying right now? You have nothing in that city prepped. You need to stop right now. And I was like, well, it's too late. And then they're like, you know what, Brandon, you're right. Let's do it. Let's go. And I was like, shit, no, please stop.
Couldn't even be mad at them at that point.
No, I couldn't. I was like, God damn it. They were going to go to the ruin and they were going to get the artifact and they were going to do the cool battle map and all that stuff. And then they didn't. But it's okay. I still had a good time, so it all worked out.
So I want to go back to kind of the beginning again,
Yeah,
real
of course.
quick.
Yeah.
So I mean, just initially, what made you want to start RWA? Like, was it just you had an idea for the Afera campaign and it grew into more, or like,
Oh
what was
yeah.
the real like inception of the idea, and how did it change from the beginning?
Oh my goodness, that's a toughie. So Roll with Advantage originally was Joe Bags 99's YouTube channel, where me in middle school I would record and upload my Skyrim gameplay footage with commentary.
Nice.
I had a couple of Civilization 5 games on here as well, along with some Minecraft, which those were bangers. I think all of them got a total of about 12 views with the 100 videos that I uploaded.
How many of those were Kayla?
How many of those were Kayla?
Yeah, watching.
Oh man, I don't think any.
Like 8?
I think no. I think it was mostly me trying to like bump up the view count.
I
Yeah.
love how we went completely different directions with that joke.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Both are valid. Both are valid. My biggest supporter, but yeah, definitely, I don't think anybody should watch that old stuff, which is why it's private now because it's really painful. Oh, it's Joe with like a high pitched voice being like, "All right, hi everybody, welcome to my Skyrim playthrough. Let's get
I
into
can't
it."
picture you with a high pitched voice.
Oh God. No, yeah, me, it's hard for me to remember as well. And then when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, oh my God, somebody shut this kid up. But Roll with Advantage. So Roll with Advantage started originally as like an archive because I'm very forgetful as a person, and I do these really like big, complicated plots with my NPCs and with the story and all that. And I just wanted a way for myself to be able to go back and listen to a session and make sure that if I'm going to do the summary or we're going into the next session, I can go back and reference what happened in the previous session. And that's really how it started. And then with Afera, I was like, you know what, honestly, maybe we could do something a little different. Maybe I could actually like start introducing it. Like if somebody happens to find this and they like it and they watch it, then that's great. And then it just kind of grew from there, where eventually I started DMing Salamander Coast and then Isles, and then I had 3 of them going. And by the time I started DMing Isles, I was already streaming on Twitch, which I think what ended up happening there was I was DMing Afera and Salamander Coast, and we were live streaming on YouTube, and people were like watching. I think it wasn't a lot of people, it was 4 or 5 people, but more so than it could just be the players. And I was like, well, okay, so people are enjoying what I'm doing here, and players from other campaigns are watching the campaign. They're watching more than just the one they play in, so maybe that means if my own players like it enough to watch the other one, well, maybe that means more people would. And it just kind of grew from there, where it started out as an archive for me to be able to go back and reference it, and then it was like, well, if somebody happens to stumble upon it and find it and they like it, amazing. And then people did stumble upon it and find it, and I was like, well, shoot, I really need to grow this now. Like I need to make it presentable now. And then that's where the stream overlay started to happen, and it's really just kind of grown from there. So that's how it started. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? I totally got caught up with the old YouTube days.
I mean, it was just basically like, did it basically just start as one campaign and kind of grew into 3, or was there always an idea to have these kind of like intermixed stories all in the same world?
So as soon as I started DMing Salamander Coast, I knew that I wanted there to be a little bit of overlap between the 2 of them, just a little bit, initially. And then when I started DMing Isles, and I think it was around session 5 or 10 of Isles, I was like, as a DM, I very much consider myself like a gardener in terms of story, where I plant seeds, and sometimes I don't even know what the seeds are. I just plant them because they could probably be useful later. And so I plant the seeds, and then as they started to, they started to bud, they started to bloom, I was like, oh, wait a minute. All of these things that I've planted that I didn't exactly know what I was going to do with, I can kind of connect from campaign 1 to campaign 2 to campaign 3. Like all 3 of these campaigns, I can start to interconnect the dots. And you know what? I had introduced an antagonist at the beginning of the Salamander Coast campaign, the Dark One. And that's kind of been, a central tension there with Daku. But the Dark One, that is so much more of an evil entity, endgame entity, than, say, the Knolls and Korvac and, House Markle and sort of the necromancy cult. So, what if those two things are working for the Dark One, and then I introduce another enemy during Salamander Coast, so that way all of them have their sort of like 3, and then the Dark One is like the enemy of RWA, like they're the enemy of the campaigns. And then it just grew from there, where I saw all of these ways that I could connect it, and as soon as I started connecting them, I fell in love with what I was doing. And I was like, this shit is so fucking cool. Look at this. They got stuff over there, and there's people over there, and they're all doing this, and then there's stuff that's connected, and it's like a world spanning, and it's so cool. And then I can do weird sci-fi shit with time travel, and there's like a creature from the astral sea that showed up, and he's just here hanging out, but he's not from this astral sea. He's from a different astral sea. He's from a reality where, like, his people got destroyed by the Dark One, and he was the only person from his entire reality to escape. That shit's dope. And so then I, as things started to happen, I just really fell in love with it. And I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I love about D&D, these massive interconnected plots. And I got to do that on like a massive scale because it was between 3 campaigns, not just one long campaign. It was 3 long campaigns. And it's just, oh God, it's just been so friggin' cool.
Ongoing long campaigns. Like
Yeah.
you said, a long way to go.
Yeah, they definitely all have quite a bit left to go. I think that most of them are approaching their halfway point, but yeah, it's still a lot. Ugh.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the first really big connection amongst the campaigns was I don't want to say like revelation, but it was Day telling Yuri that she needed to go kill Bianca from Salamander Coast, right? Like that's the first really big connection that I remember from the first 3 campaigns.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the first big one. Because Emeriel was an NPC in Afera, and then he showed up in Salamander Coast to talk to Cecily.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think that was the big one where it was like direct communication from party member to party member, where Day was like, hey, yeah, you got to go kill this lady. And Eurydice was like, what?
And Felicity was like, what?
What? No, I think that was the first one where it was like player to player communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God, and that was such a wild time. Because then I remember so many people would talk to me because they were concerned. They were like, is there really going to be PvP? I feel like we should be working together against the Dark One. And I was like, in my head, I was like, yeah, no shit. Of course you should be working together. That's the point.
Maybe Day's not the most trustworthy person to listen to. Yeah. It's like there's been some subtle clues about that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God. But yeah, no.
By the way, River, if you're listening... Just a joke. It's just a joke. No, I wouldn't know how I would have responded to that whole thing.
Oh, yeah, no. And it's like, I understand why they think that, because so many times they take what the DM says and what a lot of the NPCs say as gospel. Like, this is the truth. Why would an NPC try to manipulate us? Especially one that's as powerful as this, that, is practically Joe's voice reaching through the screen to talk to us. And that's definitely not it. Day is a master manipulator and kind of a huge asshole.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of a huge one, yeah. Like, he's still against the Dark One, all right? But he could do a better job of it,
I mean, just because you're against the greater evil doesn't mean that you're in it for the right reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so we've been talking about you a lot, but I want to get your opinion on some of the player characters.
Ah, yes.
And obviously, there's many to choose from, so unfortunately, we're not going to be going through all of them. Just it would take far too much time.
Dang, what, all 20 of them or whatever it is?
I mean, it's not that many. Well, I guess if we count retired players, maybe.
Yeah.
Because there's 6 in Salamander Coast right now. There's 6 in Afera right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 4 in Isles right now.
4 in Isles, yeah.
So 16 current player characters, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But regardless, too many to talk about them all. Although, we could easily give each of them their own segment.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But here's my question:
Hmm.
based on like the initial kind of character pitch that everyone had, because obviously it takes a while for a character to kind of grow, for like as a player to find their voice and figure out how they kind of sit and meld with the world, you know.
Hmm.
So, is there any character in particular that when you kind of heard the inspiration or the description, that either A, you were just really excited to see how it played out, or B, you were very surprised by the character and kind of like how they grew the world? Just like, yeah, which kind of PC characters kind of stood out to you in like those different ways that you just felt it was either like really inspired with what was going on, or if they surprised you in a really cool way?
That is a really, really, really good question. Um, oh God. Okay. So, I think I'm going to talk about three because I want to talk about one from each campaign. And
Ooh,
I'll do it very briefly.
okay,
Um,
totally.
where Okay, so the easiest one for me is Alec from Afera. Because when I originally was talking to Kayla about this, I really didn't want anybody to be a native. Because I was like, this is just a slippery slope. It's something that could very easily get a little too graphic and a little bit too much of like crossing a line that like a subject that shouldn't exactly be covered in D&D. And
Hmm.
I was really worried about that. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that's exactly the right thing. And then, eventually I sat down with Kayla and I talked about it. And she pitched Alec to me. And she was like, okay, but what if it was this instead? Instead of her being like a native that just like traveled, what if it was a native that this, and this happened? And then, something happened with her father and maybe her, grandparent, her parents and her people. And, then she has to have this like struggle to like be validated as the chief of her people, but it's never something she really wanted. And I don't know. I loved it so much when she was talking about it. And I loved it so much that I changed my mind. And I allowed somebody to be a native, something that I was staunchly against at the beginning. And I really, really do not at all regret my choice in backpedaling there, just because I think Alec has shown to be such a great character. And I just really love it a lot. I think that honestly from Isles, one of my favorites has been, in terms of a pitch, oh God, I think probably I really liked Twig because, I had been DMing Salamander Coast with Mark, who had played Cecily, and Cecily was also 15 at the start of the campaign, and Twig was 15 at the start of the campaign. But Twig was so much more of a different kid than Cecily was. Very awkward, very nerdy, very like shut in and just very studious. And I loved the concept of having this like studious, like very, very smart, like 15-year-old girl who's thrust into adventure, who like didn't read adventure books growing up and always wanted to, where she was always so nervous about it. And I think that one of the things that I like so much about it is like she has grown so much from where she started to where she is now. And it's like subtle changes. And so I think the pitch of having a shy, dorky, awkward, anxious 15-year-old girl go on this adventure was something that I thought was so interesting. And I thought it was so cool, because like and I think that I thought it was so cool because of the stark contrast to Cecily. And I was like, well, to have both of these characters in two separate campaigns with the idea that one day they may meet each other and have a conversation, that's wild. Those two completely different energies. So I really enjoyed that. About
Piggybacking
Twig.
off of this real quick
Yeah.
before you get to Sonic Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good friends with Gemma outside of like
Mm-hmm.
RWA. We talk all the time. One of the things that I've always complimented Gemma on, like when Isles first started, was I loved the fact that Twig legitimately felt like a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like so many times, especially in fantasy stories, you have like these 13, 14-year-old like chosen ones who do not act like children. They act like adults in children's bodies, but even then they have like the strength of an adult somehow. It's one of the reasons why I can't get into like anime. It's like, oh yeah, here's a 13-year-old. I'm like, that is not a 13-year-old. That person looks like they're 24.
It's like definitely
They're like
not.
6'3". What do you mean? But yeah, like
Yeah.
but for Twig, I love the fact that just like there's so much like vulnerability, like just by like what she is. And even though the campaign's been going on for a long time, like has she gained like some confidence? Sure, she's level
Hmm.
Miles is level 7 right now, right?
No, they're
8?
level 8. They're level 8.
Level 8, sorry, I
Yeah.
couldn't remember.
No, you're good.
But yeah, level 8, like that's pretty good. That's stronger than most people ever get in the world of Illica, I imagine.
Hmm.
Most people.
Yeah.
But she's just like this old kid. She likes like animals, and Nalvine just bought her like a stuffed rabbit the other session.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
still air quote childish things that like she cares about, and I love the fact that has been a through line throughout her depiction, that
Hmm.
even a kid can realize like what the right thing to do is and want to do what's right for other people.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be an adult to make a difference, not to start at least. And I think that's just a really cool story to tell with Twig.
And I do completely agree with that sentiment. And that's one of the reasons why I liked it so much, is like, how does that change when, you have somebody who's so different than like everybody else, jumping into the campaign. You have somebody like Twig, and then starting out, Twig's companion in her session 0.5 was Grok. Like this, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then how does she react to that, and how does she grow and develop, and then eventually, she has this beautiful relationship that begins to form with Nalfian and Eurydice, and then now Lila, who's a part of the group, and I've loved seeing the growth of that character. Even though it's been small incremental changes, they've been such big changes for her,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, Joe, you got one left.
I got one left.
Got one left.
So I think that in Salamander Coast, obviously with all of these player characters and all of the campaigns, I really enjoy all of them, and I love all of them a great deal, and all that good stuff. But I think in terms of when it was pitched to me, one of the ones that I got super excited about at the start of Salamander Coast was, and I'm gonna do two here, just because it makes it easier to talk about.
For sure.
I really enjoyed both Bianca and Poe, and I feel bad mentioning Poe because obviously Poe is a retired adventurer in Roll with Advantage. But I still really, really, really loved everything to deal with Poe, because he was such a fantasy character. It was such a fantasy novel book character, and not in the way where he pre-wrote a backstory and like pre-wrote an adventure that Poe would need to go on, but where it was just a young kid who was like 17 years old who needed to find himself. He had like these great stories that his father told him about his past and his ancestors, and he just wanted to prove that he was worthy of that and that he could do that. And I loved that so much. And I really just loved it because of how, I don't want to say generic because that's not the right word, how much it felt like home. I think that's the best way for me to put it, is when I was talking to Evan about Poe, I was like, yeah, I felt so comfortable in that area. And because so much of my fantasy back catalog of stuff that I've read, movies that I've watched, are about some young person who says, God, I need to leave home because I need to either A, defend my family, I need to B, discover myself, or I need to do both of those things. And the only way I can do that is by leaving. And that was what Poe did. And I loved that. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I really loved Bianca's because of how Felicity, in terms of Bianca, came up with these really, really good, like, a really good base for what this character could be, especially considering what tieflings are in my world, where she always had these sort of like reservations about her family and not exactly sure, what's going on, because nobody ever really gave her the truth. They just tried to treat her like she was normal, when obviously being a tiefling is not normal. It's not something that happens just because of your parents. It happens because somebody in your family made a deal with some type of entity, and now you're cursed to be that way. And so they tried everything they could to raise Bianca as a normal girl. But still, Bianca was shut in. She was quiet. She was shy. She would stay in her alchemy shop. She moved away from home because she didn't want to be near them. Not in a negative way, but like needed to get distance to discover herself. And I knew from the beginning that this was going to be such a great way, this adventure, to one, get Bianca out of her shell, and then for two, to finally give her like a family that accepted that she was different and that loved her and cared for her and really admired her for what she could do. And on top of that, I knew immediately when she wanted to be a blood hunter, and she was like this quiet, shut in, like, I'm going to stay in my alchemy shop. And she just, I think what she said, she was like, yeah, Bianca just got curious one day. Like, she had a traveler who would tell her stories, and then the traveler brought her a book on how to do it. And one day she was just experimenting and kind of ended up doing that to herself. And I was like, so she didn't even do it out of necessity. Like, she was just like in her shop one day and was like, well, let's see what happens. And Felicity was like, yeah, because she's never taken a risk before in her life. And this was like the first one she ever took. And I was like, that's great. I loved that the first risk your character has ever taken was becoming a blood hunter. What?
That's a definite choice.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, obviously, once again, seeing how much all of the characters have grown over time, and seeing how much Bianca has grown over time. And it's one of those things very similar to Twig, where it's not like big, massive, like her character is completely different. It's small changes that have a big impact on how Bianca approaches her day-to-day life, you know, and how she interacts with people. You know, just as an example, I really loved the moment that Bianca shared with that one member of the Children of the Flame last session of Salamander Coast, you know, with the candles and the everything. Like, I loved that moment so much. And, you know, I think that I don't know if that's something Bianca would have done, you know, 10, 15 sessions ago before she had the lantern with her, you know? And so I really enjoyed all three of those characters in their initial pitch, because it was just something that either A, changed my mind about how I felt about something, or B, was such a different take on an adventure in a fantasy setting that I was like, oh yeah, this is nice. This is nice. Or in the case of Poe, it was just something that I loved so much, and something that, you know, I think that one of the next characters I play, I'd like to have them be pretty similar to Poe. Well, I think the next character that I play in any given campaign, I'd like to be a cowboy who shoots pistols and goes howdy.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. But then after that, I'd like to play, you know, like just some like 17-year-old kid who's like, I need to get out of my farm. I need to see the world, and then kind of regrets it, but then for some reason can't go back to his farm. But anyway, so that is I think in their initial pitch and sort of story that they've been told so far. I think that those were the three that kind of intrigued me the most. And not to say that
Bianca for a second.
Yeah, of course.
So one of the things that I really liked about Bianca was because I feel like with like D&D, I feel like not always, but I feel like for the most part, you get characters who are kind of in two boats. You either get someone who's either very young and is just kind of wandering, or a little bit aimless, and they just kind of stumble into the adventure.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you kind of have like the older veterans who have been doing what they've been doing, and, you know, they're getting too old for this shit. And, you know, they take the call to adventure because they understand like why it's important and why it's needed. And I really like the fact that Bianca was kind of in that middle ground of like, she was like growing up. Like you said, she moved out. Like, she had her own alchemy shop. Like, she had her own business. Mm-hmm. Like, she had a life that could have, like, Bianca could have been an NPC. You know
yeah, she really could have, yeah.
Yeah, like, she could have just been like doing her own thing, but, you know, life happens and things change. But I like the fact that Bianca has always felt a little bit more real to me, just because you know, she's not just like going from like one step to the next. I mean, now we kind of are because that's just the nature of Salamander Coast. But like with life, like she had a plan. Like she was kind of like not like set for life by any means, but she had like what she was doing and her goals, and a
Mhm.
shop to call her own and a business, and probably return customers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then things changed. And I don't know, just kind of like that middle ground. I like that it wasn't
Yeah.
just an old veteran or just someone who wandered into it. I like the fact that Bianca was kind of in that middle ground. And I don't know, I think you don't see that a lot, but I think it's really cool that it's this young adult story, but a
Yeah.
real young adult story, not like a 15-year-old having a midlife crisis, but someone who's like out on their own and trying to figure out life for the first time, struggling with that. That I think works.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree, and I thought that it worked really really well in that particular circumstance, and yeah, no, I thoroughly, and like I said, I want to stress that in case any of the other players, Ryan yourself included, are listening to this, I still love every single player character for different reasons. Like there are things that I really love about all of the player characters and things that they've done and things that they're currently doing. For different reasons. And it's just that those three that were in their initial pitch, where I was like, oh, okay. Like I was like, that's a little different. So yeah.
I mean, you obviously just didn't pick mine because otherwise it just seems like you're playing to me.
It does seem a little
I
pandering,
get
yeah.
that. It would be a little pandering. I don't blame you. I mean, it would have been really cool if you did, but I understand. I mean, I would have given you crap if you picked both of Kayla's, but if you picked both of mine, I wasn't going to say anything. So it's fine. All right, we talked about PCs, so now we got to go on to the other half of D&D, the NPCs.
Oh god.
So as a fellow DM, I know that sometimes there are NPCs that are made with a ton of thought, that were made in advance for specific stories. Obviously, like Imrol, correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt Imrol was someone you made that day. I think Imrol was a long time before he showed up.
No.
Right? Okay.
I knew Imriel existed in the world since I think session 6 of Afera. So before Salamander Coast even started.
All right, cool. So
yeah,
that's good.
It's been.
Had you told me like, nah, Imrol was like 30 minutes before the campaign, like 30 minutes before that session started, I would have been like, what? Like my reality of mattered. So many conspiracy boards outside the window. But anyways, we won't dive down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because other times there are NPCs that you just kind of need to create on the fly for a shop owner or just to kind of fulfill a role. So obviously, like the NPCs that you've made, I think you should be very proud of because I think all of them have been very distinct. Mm-hmm. But is there any NPC in the campaigns that you ended up enjoying a lot more than you expected, or perhaps you ended up giving a lot more screen time than you thought they would have initially?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I think that so it was had more screen time than you initially thought, and then what was the first part? Didn't think you'd like as much as you did.
Yeah, just like an NPC that kind of ended up becoming more than you expected.
More than I expected. Ah, yes. Okay, that is an important distinction. I think that for one, more screen time than I initially thought they would have. I definitely think that. Oh man, I think that if I'm being honest, there was an NPC in Salamander Coast that came up very briefly, and she came up again in Isles a few sessions ago, right before they had the session before they met Chance. Madam Min and Mira, something like that. She was somebody who I thought would have more screen time. Because I initially wasn't, and this is something kind of crazy, is I didn't think. I had the idea for Keothi the session before I introduced her.
Okay.
So because I thought that Min, who is this sort of astral bard, was sort of the seer and she was the fortune teller, I thought that she was going to be the person that was going to be traveling with the party with Salamander Coast for the duration of the kind of events that they were going through. And then the more that I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Honestly, I just don't think that she fits the vibe. And I feel really bad saying that. But she's just not it. She's just not it. Mina, that's what her name was, Mina. And yeah, she was somebody that I was like, you know what? I just don't think this is going to be something that's we're going to put too much stock in. NPCs that came up more than what I thought they would in other campaigns. Honestly, this one might sound a little confusing, but I didn't think Jalissa would be as big of a player as she is. I thought that when the Afera group got back after Sunken City Bay, that they were going to not have kind things to say to her, which they didn't. But then I thought things were going to get ugly, and I thought they might have done something there. And then they didn't. And then she, was like, okay, well, I'm going to try and make this right. And then from that point, she just kept coming up. And I was like, well, okay, let's dig into this a little bit more. Let's give her some character development. Let's give her a little bit more depth and intrigue and things going on in her life. And so that was definitely something. Let's see, who else? I think that in Isles, let me take a quick gander here. I actually pulled up Foundries, that way I could look at
your NPC log.
That way I could look at the NPC log, yeah. Oh, you know what? Somebody that I definitely thought was going to be there for a couple of seconds and then has kept coming up was Bishop Redimni, sort of the bishop of the church in Raven Rock. And it was honest, if I'm being honest, the session where he showed up in Isles recently, that was a last minute thing where I knew Bishop Ieda was there from Sandpoint, but I was like, okay, the last time they interacted with him, you know what? They actually did get along with him. So let's just see what happens now that the party's different and now that they have a different sort of energy that they're coming at him with. And it was really good. I really loved that I included him. Last one from Isles, Alistair. This one is a fun fact because I love Alistair, and obviously a big inspiration for him as a character was Jaskier from the Witcher show. Just because I love that character and I love that actor's portrayal of Jaskier. And so I was like, well, you know what? That worked out with such a stoic person like Geralt. Let's see how the wacky party that is Isles, let's see how they interact with somebody like him. But the thing is, I'm going to be really honest, Ryan. When I was introducing that character, as he was being introduced, what was in my notes was this is John's member of the 13, since he's a changeling. He's disguised as this character, and he's hanging around the party to collect information to see what they're doing and why they're here.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that was my plan. But then here's the here's the awkward part. I wrote that down, and immediately as I introduced the character, I was like, well, this plan kind of sucks. I don't want him to do this. I like him too much already. And so he didn't do anything shady, right? He was just somebody who was very charismatic, who was just he was a little bit of a dickweed, but he was still, a character who was kind of enjoyable in a very unenjoyable way. And I was like, you know what? Honestly, I don't think that this matches the vibe. I don't think that this is how John's character would approach a situation like this. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scrap it. And I just sort of gave up. And then I was able to let him fully embrace the party and kind of not fully embrace the party as much as Alistair may want to in some circumstances. Had him sort of integrate a little bit more and was able to get some good character beats in for him in the time that he was with the party. And, hopefully they get to see him at the end of the siege at the next session. But that was a thought that I had where I was like, he's only supposed to be here for a session or two and then leave the party. He was just supposed to be there to collect information. Then I was like, oh, I like this NPC too much. I can't do that to them. I want this to be a positive impact that the party has had on a person and not be something that they have to worry about with every single person they meet, that they might be a dark friend or one of the 13 in disguise. So I decided to kind of nix that. And I don't regret that choice.
See, that's crazy to me, because then Alistair went on to do so much that session where he had the interaction with the cursed I don't remember the gentleman's name.
Nigel.
But the one who had been bit Nigel. And there was that whole sweet moment between them that kind of almost rewrote his entire character. Not rewrote it, but it was okay, this guy's not total shit.
Yeah. And, that just goes to show that, like, as the person that I am with the theater background I have, improv is where I really love to be in any given session or any given moment in a campaign. And that was just one of those moments where now that I threw away the script that Alistair did have, I was like, well, let's just kind of see what happens. What would, if I were a player, what would make me care more about this person? The fact that he cares about somebody else. And the fact that he cares about somebody else who didn't need to take care of him. And then instead of being a dick to that person, he was like actually genuinely very appreciative of them. Like show that he has genuine human emotion and that he can care about somebody and everything's not a dick joke, and so it was just one of those things where that was, like I said, that was most of Alistair's character has been improvised just based off of what I think is best in the moment. Which,
so yeah. I'm going to weigh in real quick on some NPCs that have stuck out to me that I didn't really expect.
Oh, please do.
I mean, can we really talk about surprise NPCs without talking about Danny? Can we really do that?
Oh, God. How can I forget? I'm even wearing the hoodie right now. I'm wearing the hoodie.
If you want to talk about an NPC that you would think would make multiple appearances, it's got to be Danny.
Oh, you're right.
If you watched the show and you were like, Danny's going to show up multiple times, fuck you. You're a liar.
No.
There's no one who thought that.
I feel so silly right now. Oh my God. I'm wearing the hoodie. I have the... Holy shit. Yeah, he's come up so much. And
now they've become so iconic.
They are. They are synonymous with Isles. The Danny, Donnie, and Philly. The boys, Oh,
I still joke about this to this day, Joe, because it always makes me smile. But one of these days, like, we're all gonna have our big confrontation with like the 13, the Dark One, or whatever, and I'll always picture Nalfian having this awesome standoff moment against someone. And I'll be like, this is the same guy who squared up against a raccoon.
Yeah, like he's gonna be just there and be like, ooh, and then it's like this guy. 70, 80, 100 sessions ago was like, all right, listen here, you fucking raccoons, get out of here.
And Danny stood his ground against Nalfian, which I think is the funniest thing.
Yeah, he was like, bring it, Buck. You can't step up to this.
You literally described him as like getting on like two legs, like holding his hands apart, like, what? Swing first, do it. You won't, bitch.
Give me a reason, Bucky. Come on.
Oh my gosh.
God. No, that's great. I can't believe I forgot about that. That's so funny. Jesus.
And then when he appeared in the Feywild to apologize to Twig.
Like Elowen, the literal like embodiment of nature was like, Danny, you need to apologize. And he was like, hey, okay, I'm sorry. What can I say? Hey.
I just think it would have been really funny if Alvin called him Daniel and just refused to call him Danny.
Oh.
I think that would have really sold it for me.
Oh yeah, that would have been great.
She's like that mom that like doesn't acknowledge that like her son has like a nickname that all of his friends calls him, just calls him by his real name all the time.
Daniel R. Raccoonus, apologize to Twig right now.
No, you said you wouldn't call me that anymore.
Hey.
You said if I came, you'd stop.
Oh,
you're all laughing at me back home.
God, that's so funny.
Okay, from a slightly less wacky example, probably one of my favorite NPCs, which I'm a little biased because obviously I had a very big moment with this character. Ethos Ambrose was someone that developed in a way that I did not expect.
No, same. Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing him again because, I mean, obviously, the story will be what the story will be, but I mean, I certainly want him at the trial speaking in our favor about what was going on in Evrand. Because I think he has a very unique, I think he has a very unique role to offer where he was kind of on the wrong side and he switched sides. And Evrand in particular, there's been a lot of talk about, how far does someone have to go before they can't be redeemed and you shouldn't be helping them anymore. Yeah. And I feel like Ethos was kind of a good start for that.
Yeah, because he wasn't somebody that was influenced by the Dark One. He was just somebody who was influenced by a malicious person who may or may not have been connected to the Dark One in some way, shape, or form. But, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but still, it's like, people being affected by the Ring versus Denethor, who was just a douche.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. He was.
Boromir's not a bad guy. He was just influenced by the ring. That's all. You know. Denethor though,
Well,
dude's a fucking asshole.
straight up, like, sorry, I know we can like have a whole like 4-hour episode of you and me just geeking out about Lord of the Rings, but seriously, the extended versions of Lord of the Rings do so much to make Boromir a phenomenal character because
Oh
you
my
realize
God,
that he
yeah.
just was not some asshole the entire time,
Yeah,
and makes him into
exactly.
such a tragic figure when you realize what happened to him.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, but like I said, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, or else we'll never come back out.
Yeah, we'll never be done.
Okay, so you talked about improv with Alistair.
Uh-huh.
So that actually perfectly segues into this next question. So, we have had some characters who had to retire and had to leave. And in pretty much every instance, there's been some people who have risen up to serve as kind of like replacements to, help the parties out. With Ephera, it was me. And more recently, it was, Torin and Oyvind from John and Eric.
Yeah.
With Isles, we have Lila, played by Felicity.
Yep.
And in SC, we obviously have the Dulski twins, played by myself and Gemma.
Correct.
So, what was the challenge in bringing these characters in? Because they all came in very kind of different ways.
Yeah.
And just kind of, what was your experience getting all those characters kind of integrated, and what were like the challenges that came with it?
Yeah, so I think that each one of them presented different difficulties, considering the levels, considering the place that they were at in the story, and also considering who that character was. Because that's kind of the big thing, right? I can have the perfect entrance for a character, but if it doesn't match that character, then is it really the perfect entrance? Like, I have the easiest one, but it doesn't fit them so well. And so the difficulty with all 4 of them, because there were 4 separate entrances, one for Varnast, one for Oyvind and Torin, one for Lila, and then one for Carasilla and Morwen, was making sure that they, as a DM and as a player, which I'm sure that you've been able to notice at least a little bit in Evrand as we've played so far, is as a DM and as a player, I'm always looking for a way to push the story forward, right? Let's keep that momentum. Let's not stall and just kind of like pause for a moment, unless it's like everybody agrees to it and we're like good to like spend 30 minutes in a tavern asking about Gak's backstory, if everybody's a part of it, that's okay. But as soon as it's just like 2 people going back and forth, how can I then make sure that we push the story forward, or we push the characters forward, or we do whatever? And so whenever a character is introduced, I always try and make sure that they are set on the same path as the characters that are in the story already, and that B, those paths are aligned and they're not going to diverge anytime soon. So like with Varnast was easier because the party already did not like the Golden Shields. They hated them. So Varnast was easy, having him be somebody who was, for lack of a better term, fired from the Golden Shields by...
Yeah, that's the word we'll use, fired.
By a monstrous woman, and then sort of sent on his way after he was revived by Asticia, and then eventually found his way back to the party, or found his way to the party, I should say. Like, that one was an easy connection to make. Okay, hates the Golden Shields, wants to see this through. But then Varnast gets tied to it, because he's also a worshiper of Asticia, same as Alec. And so to me, that was really important, because it's like, okay, these 2 characters have something to bond over. And by the time Varnast joined, I knew that Logan Silverfoot was going to die in one way, shape, or form. Like, they hadn't even met him yet, but I knew that was going to be a beat in Alec's backstory. She can't grow to be the person that she needs to be if she doesn't die. Or if, whoa.
Whoa, dark.
If her father doesn't die. And so I knew that Varnast, more so than Zamir or Morganix, I knew that Varnast could eventually one day become that father figure to her. And it has been a long and arduous journey, but eventually they're there now, where Alec cares so much about Varnast, and Varnast cares so much about her, and I think that that's beautiful. And I love that relationship so much, because and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I feel like Varnast cares so much about that relationship. and he really probably cares about it as much as Alec does. Because it's been so beautiful to kind of see it unfold, and how Varnast has kind of opened up quite a bit as a person and not relaxed a little bit more, but like he's been able to sort of pull back a little bit more, and he's able to be that sort of like, in some scenarios, a little bit more of a cool dad. Not necessarily, but sometimes with Alec. And I love those like happy moments that the two of them share together. And that's been,
I mean,
yeah.
we can talk freely because, I mean, like, why not have a little bit of, like, fun look behind the curtain type stuff.
Yeah.
But no, Varnast has cared for Alec for a very long time. Because, at first he just felt terrible for this girl because, I mean, Varnast also had family tragedy at a young age with like losing his father, which was terrible. But even Varnast is like, okay, but what this girl's going through is way worse. Way worse. Like I know you shouldn't compare pain, but this is way worse than what I went through. And Varnast can say that.
Yeah.
And so, he felt bad because he felt like there was all this responsibility on Alec that people were kind of pushing on her, and he wasn't sure that she wanted it. And, so he felt guilty because he was like, this girl's trying to do what she thinks is right, but is it going to be like what makes her happy? Because, sometimes it's not. Sometimes what you should do isn't what you want to do. That's just part of reality.
Totally, yeah.
And seeing Alec embrace that role, he's just been trying to help because life, was so hard for her that he just wanted to make things a little bit easier if he could. And they've bonded through that by having some very honest, like, heart-to-heart conversations about leadership and working with people and what to do when there's disagreements. And, how do you stop someone who challenges your authority? Like, what do you do about that? Especially because Alec used to be quite an angry person.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say she's not really an angry person anymore. I would say she's a passionate person, but I wouldn't say Alec's an angry person because I think those are two very different things.
Correct. I would absolutely agree with you there.
And Varnast, his relationship with Alec grew just because, the party kind of pushed him to be in a much better place, like his relationship with, Sven, like as hard as it was for him to talk about, he was able to talk about it. And, where that kind of goes in the future, we'll still see. But there's kind of this idea of just kind of like family, which Varnast kind of left behind to go pursue his work, and how much more important it is than he probably kind of gave it credit for. And kind of rediscovering it with Alec, that there's this person that he can help. And, he can kind of be that figure while her father is gone. And the only reason that Varnast hasn't said anything, despite the fact that he feels very strongly about it, is he just feels like it's not his place to kind of claim her.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know how she's going to respond. Like that can be a very uncomfortable thing to say if the other person doesn't feel the same way.
Yeah,
and also
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you first.
I was just going to say, it's funny because then you and Kayla both know what that feels like as player characters, because she feels that exact same thing with Nalfian and Twig, and like how Nalfian, and that's really funny to me that you two have kind of like, not necessarily like the tables haven't turned, you've just alternated who is in the neutral role and who's in the father role, and so I'm excited to see the next game where Gemma is your father figure, Ryan.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm stoked for that.
But I think we're going to see some developments on that front between those two here sooner over later, though. So I'm excited for that.
Good. And I mean, just to kind of put a button on the subject of introducing the player characters, I do think that with Oyvind and Torin, it was a similar thing to Varnast, where it's like, okay, the Knolls are an issue, but these two aren't from Afaris, so it's like, well, we got to connect them somehow, and well, they just need to head to the same area. And then as long as they're heading to the same area, obviously these two are going to be connected to the plot, the plot at hand with the Dark One. They have to be, right? That's kind of how far the campaign is along now. So if we set them on the same path, as they travel down that path, they can eventually find out what they need to connect them further to the story as a whole. Same thing happened with Lila, where they're already so connected to the Dark One. how can we then connect Lila to the Dark One? And through her, it was a different path. And that has to do with, the sort of end game goals for Lila. But hers was through the astral ways and sort of constellations, and how that is probably going to play a big, big, big role in Isles in their sort of end game part of the campaign. And Lila was a great way for me to not only introduce not a new mechanic, but a new story element, but also to introduce a much needed character, where obviously all three of those characters on their own, between Nalthian, Eurydice, and Twig, they had funny moments and they had like comedic moments and they had lightness to them. But the three of them had a lot of trauma and anxiety. And Lila is so like bubbly and bright. Like, I think that the way that Felicity describes her is like a cupcake. She's like built like a cupcake in terms of like her dress and what she wears, and then she's like colorful. And being somebody who has that brightness in life but still has trauma was something that was much needed for the party. So being able to sort of throw her on that same path and knowing immediately Lila and most of the other party members would click like nothing else. Like, I knew that was such a that was a no-brainer. So it really...
We do love our trauma here on RWA.
We do.
Love our trauma characters.
Heck yeah, man. I'm looking at all the characters right now, and there is not one on here that doesn't have some type of trauma, I believe. Nope.
Yeah, Varnas is cool.
Varnas, no trauma at all. Definitely not.
Yeah, stress-free, much like Ryan, his creator. No stress in Ryan's life.
No stress at all. Yep. Just good vibes.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I just imagine that in your head, Ryan, there's always like Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett just playing on a constant loop.
Yeah, but it's like 5 notches of volume too loud all the time.
Oh God, you're
like,
too
I'm
relaxed.
listening to it a little too intensely.
Oh God, that's
dun,
a horror
dun,
movie.
dun, dun.
Oh God.
But enough about me. That's for another show.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
all right, so I got like 2 kind of final questions, and one of them might not become anything. But
okay.
As you know, when you read the contract, I'm legally required to be honest with you, as we're
course.
talking. Because
Yes.
otherwise, what's the point of this whole thing?
It wasn't your employee contract. That's right. I'm glad you.
Yeah, it was. I really wish I would have read it more thoroughly, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Do you still have my $70,000 deposit that I need?
Yeah. I sent it in Dogecoin.
Shit.
Yeah. So.
All right.
You really should have been more specific in the contract.
I know. All right.
There's a lot of freedom on the page.
All right. Ask your question.
All right. So first off, do you have? Since I'm kind of the only one here, so I'm the representative of the players right now.
Wow.
So is there anything as a DM that you kind of want to ask your players, aka me, what my opinion is on something that's been going on in RWA? Because if you don't, that's fine. But this is your opportunity to ask something and get some feedback.
Okay. Yeah, this is, and I like that I don't have a camera turned on so you can't see my face, and I'll try and make sure that I don't make any noise. But Ryan, just because you play in Afera, there was something that recently came up in Afera that seemed to have some big weight to it related to, big guy himself, Imriel.
Yeah.
Maybe. So I'm just kind of curious. I asked Kayla earlier, while we were driving from breakfast to back home, what her thoughts were. But I'd love to, as the representative of the players, Ryan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Imriel situation, because it's something that I've been cooking on for a while.
I feel like giving myself that title just really is going to bite me in the ass. I feel like I'm going to get a message from Gemma being like, so as the representative of the players, can you ask Joe this? And I'll be like, God damn it, why did I say it like that? Yep. Like, I feel like I'm just going to be mocked for it now that I've said it like that.
Exactly.
And rightfully so.
It's the life.
So Joe, we've talked a little bit about the Imriel thing before, because as you can recall, my first major conspiracy board revolved around Imriel.
That is correct.
Because something specifically happened in SC that freaked me the fuck out the moment I realized it.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, here's a little bit of a history lesson. SC, like 30 sessions ago, I don't remember, it was a long time ago, but they traveled to the future, and it was a future where clearly the Dark One had won. The only survivor was a very old Nalfian Baynir, at least as far as we're aware. And Nalfian told this story about an emerald that he found, but along with that, there was like not like quite a crucifix, but there was like an emerald that was like strapped to like something. I can't remember how exactly he was displayed, but there was a dead emerald that was there.
Yeah, he was like hanging, strung up. Yeah.
And by this point, Afera had already been told that the emerald that they had been speaking to was a simulacrum.
Yep.
Which, for anyone who doesn't know, that's basically a magical clone, but not to be confused with actual clone. It's confusing. But, it's basically this magical kind of copy that Emerald created of himself. And they have, like, 1 HP, but they can cast, like, X number of spells. Now, Emerald's, like, an advanced simulacrum, but still a simulacrum. And Emerald himself has said on multiple occasions, a stray arrow could kill him.
Yes.
Like, he's soft. And so, I remember it was, like, 2 days later or something, and I just, like, randomly was, like, laying in bed, and then I was like, hold up! If Emerald's dead, how is there still a body? Wait, what? And it's what led me down to the madness of super paying attention, because I always paid attention, but this was me, like, really, like, this is what started this whole Ryan is a conspiracy theorist bit with RWA, and it's been going strong to this very day. And that's when the whole idea of Emerald Prime kind of came into introduction, which has since been adopted into RWA, which I love that, by the way. And so I actually had a question about that, because I meant to ask this. Oh. I was going to do it outside of the game, but we might as well do it now. But at one point, didn't Evrand scry on Sigrun, and he saw Sigrun and Emerald talking about Zamir?
Correct.
Okay, but then when you described the guy talking to Din and Baynir, it was just a golden man. Like, you didn't say it looked like Emerald, because wouldn't Evrand have recognized him? Or was it Emerald? Because I was a little confused, because I was like, well, he didn't say it was Emerald, and I feel like Evrand would have recognized him, or at least been like, hey, that guy was Sigrun. So I was a little confused on that. So, can you offer some clarification?
I think that was me being intentionally vague, thinking that it was obvious, but yeah, that was Emerald. At least in terms of
for sure.
Facial structure, it's just his outfit was different. Like he was wearing like black velvet trimmed in purple.
Okay. So, we've theorized for a long time that there's multiple Emeralds running around. There's 2 that we at least know of. There's the one that is, we're just going to call him Friendly, who, like, Afera originally met, has, he's like the ally that has been very kind, always with Sigrun. Or at the very least for a long time has always been with Sigrun. Because pretty much it's been every time, minus like the first time we met him, right? Maybe the second time we met him, but I think Sigrun's been around every time after.
Yeah. When you guys came back from your delve into the Temple of Astitia where you met Baramichi, every time after that, he's had Sigrun with him, which it should be noted that the first time that you did meet him, he was wearing black velvet trimmed in purple.
Oh, shit. Well, anyways.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means to you, but that's at least something that is...
I'm going to have to think about that for a while. Goddamn. I hate myself sometimes, Joe.
It's okay. My goal is to make sure that you don't sleep tonight.
Margaritaville just went 3 more notches up. But yeah, so I think it's not a stretch to say, because we also heard a rumor going to the Bloody Mesa that like there was an elven man that was seen like wandering into the desert with like golden skin.
Correct.
So I think it's fairly safe to say that like, do I think this whole Emerald thing is going to be cleared up soon? I don't know, but it's been a mystery that's been long building to where I think a confrontation is coming close, because also we don't know this in-game, but we know it out-of-game, that our Emerald is stuck in like a pocket space dimension somewhere right now, to where clearly this guy can't be him, or at least not that version of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found it very interesting where I kind of wonder if Emerald's in a similar situation of Parido, of he's a guy who's been fighting for so long, and finally his real body, the one with all all the memories, because even our Emerald doesn't have all the memories, right? Like he has a lot of them, but he doesn't have all of them.
Yeah, he did admit that, where there are just some things that are hazy to him and things that are just voids he doesn't know about.
So I wonder if we have a very similar situation to Parido, where we have someone who clearly was this champion of the light, and they finally just gave up. because things were just hard or they got bad or
Yep.
something happened, because obviously something happened. That's not really a grand statement to make, but clearly something happened. I don't think we have the clues to figure it out yet. I think we could theorize, but I don't think that there's been enough evidence for us to come to a definitive conclusion, which I'm hoping you can confirm that that's a fair thing to say.
Yes.
Like, we might be able to infer it, but there's no way that's
there's
for
nothing
sure this is what's happened.
Concrete. I think that, and this is one of those things where, the more details that you throw out as a DM that you think are really obvious end up being super duper nonchalant to your players, and how did you expect us to get that? And I think this might be one of those situations.
It might be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, because also another thing, the Emerald just said that it was Dinan and someone else was going to go basically check on the wardens to make sure that Morganax was dead. He didn't say it was going to be him. He just said, I'll send someone else with you, right?
Yes, I will send... I think he said, I will send a servant with you.
Okay.
Or somebody else. It was one of those two things.
I mean, I think it's interesting because, we haven't really been able to kind of put Emerald in the corner of a room and just been all right, start talking, or really kind of as really negative of a word this is, we haven't really been able to interrogate.
Yeah.
But also, I think we kind of knew that there was something somewhat fishy going on, because straight up, I mean, let's be honest, we've met quite a few of Emerald's students now. Most of them are not what I would call stable people. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair statement.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Even Zamir, who is a good person, there's a lot of issues there.
Yeah, that's why I tried to start introducing more. Yeah, that's why I tried to start introducing more students that aren't nearly as fucked up as all of the rest of them.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's interesting because it's okay, well, there's Emerald students where they all, are Emerald and things just went wrong. Did Emerald Prime create this Emerald to seek out more people, to find people who could be corrupted by the Dark One? Because, obviously, anyone can be tempted by the Dark One. Anyone can listen to the Father of Lies. But we've seen specifically that Maya and Zamir are, more vulnerable to that type of manipulation and influence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Zamir went on this whole 3 trials for, was to try and hinder that. And again, in character, we don't know what's going on with Maya, but we know what happens with Maya. And we have not checked on her in a hot minute, to where I'm guessing that's already started.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
So again, there's all these connective threads where I'm it's really, it's like a jigsaw where it's okay, I might be able to guess what the picture is, but I don't know exactly what the photo is. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but this is what happens when you get me on the conspiracy board, is I start throwing shit at the wall to show you that I'm paying attention.
That's okay, man. I think that my last thing that I'll ask here, because you answered it for the most part, is related to
my homework.
The thing that Morganax saw before she came back.
Because I noticed you used the exact same art to show the end of the world. Because I'm pretty sure that's the art that you used for SC when they went.
Yep.
There was another Emerald, and Morganax at least believed that she was talking to the Father of Lies, which I'm not sure. I mean, I could be wrong. There was a lot going on. It was a very emotional episode.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, but did we get a confirmation that was the Father of Lies speaking through Emerald, or, just talking right there, or was that just her suspicion? I was a little confused by that.
That was just her suspicion. There was no confirmation at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. But again, Emerald Prime is working with, for, or as the Dark One. I don't know. But, it's one of those things. It has to be. It has to be. Because again, we've now seen an Emerald speak to Din Baynir, and there's been all this stuff to where I don't think our Emerald's in on it, because I feel like he could have done a lot more damage just by not helping us or doing what he has been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I'm just specifically going with the Wardens here for the record, but are the Wardens like single-handedly like fighting the Dark One and like pushing him back? No, but I think it's safe to say they've been a pain in his ass.
Yeah, precisely.
He doesn't look at them fondly, bare minimum.
Oh, definitely not.
To where, yeah, I still just believe that there's at least 2 Emeralds. I don't know if there's more, but there's at least 2 Emeralds. And yeah, I definitely think Emerald Prime has either willingly or forcibly gone into darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And what exactly does that mean? Don't know, but that's the working theory, but I don't have enough evidence to come to a concrete conclusion.
Okay, all right, yeah. Well, I will look forward to any future developments.
I will let you know when I do. You know me. Too many conspiracy boards for my own good. Running out of wall space.
There you go, yeah. I love to hear
Alright, so I think this has gone very well, but I have one last request, which, Joe, you have every right to look at me and say, no, Ryan, absolutely not. Which is fair.
God. Okay.
That's fair.
Okay.
But obviously, we're all chomping at the bit to know what's going to happen, right? Like, everyone's wondering what's happening next, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen.
Okay.
So, here's my offer to you, because obviously we don't want anything spoiled.
Okay.
But if you were to consider it, I want you to name each campaign and say one word that has something to do with something. You could be.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love this, buddy. Oh yeah.
It could either be an overall campaign thing. It could be something specific to one of the characters or an arc coming up. You do not need to give any explanation. You just say Afera. Here's the word. SC. Here's the word. And that's it. That's all the taste that people are gonna get.
Okay.
That way the players know I fought for them here.
That's
I got
good.
something for them.
That's good. Okay. Afera.
I will be writing these down, by the way.
That's okay.
Don't
That's
mind
okay.
me.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna make each one of these vague as I can, as opposed to I could name like a region of the world or something like that, but instead I'm just gonna say vague nouns.
Okay.
Okay. Afera. Snow.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Right? Yeah, I know. I'm very excited for that one.
Is there snow in Afera?
Mm,
It's like a tropical landmass.
Yeah, like at the very tips of the mountain peaks of Afera there is.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say don't answer that, but I also feel like that's something I would know anyway. So
yeah, that's it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you can look at a map.
Snow. Okay, snow.
Isles. This one's hard because I have something in my head, but it's 2 words and it gives it away too much.
I was gonna say you can say 2 words. Like I make the rules, but you write the contract, so you can change how this game works completely.
Let me look this up. Let me look up one thing real quick. Sorry, I'm looking for like one thing here.
You're good, homie. You're good.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm getting there. Okay, here we go. Okay. I'm going to say...
Got me on pins and needles here, buddy.
Yeah, I know. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to expand it a little bit, and I'm going to say... Okay, so it is 2 words. And but it's a hyphenated word.
Sure, it counts.
Non-traditional travel.
Non-traditional travel. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's like so terrible. And then for sound,
I already have a theory about that with Isles, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. For Salamander Coast. For Salamander Coast, I'm also this one's gonna be 2 words and a symbol: kingdoms and castles.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know what to say to that. That's interesting.
Snow, non-traditional travel, and kingdoms and castles. That's what I got.
Huh.
That's what I'm gonna give.
Okay, no, hey, you could have said no, and just been like, you could have not played at all. I appreciate that you gave us the smallest scrap of something to start theorizing, looking forward to.
Yeah.
And if I may say, I'm just really glad that Afero gets snow, because Vardas has gone to all these tropical hot places and he fucking hates it.
I know.
And finally he can go somewhere cold and just be like, yes. And Alec will be struggling because she doesn't wear socks. And he'll be like, you need to wear socks, like your feet are gonna die. Like, that's not a metaphor, they will die.
Yeah, exactly. No, I absolutely emphatically agree, and I'm very excited to see what exactly happens in snow.
I'm so curious by all of these. Everyone get your board ready. Let me know what your theories are.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about them in another episode.
Yeah, post down in the comments what you think the next arc for any one of the 3 campaigns are.
I absolutely, in the other roll calls, can bring these up and be like, hey, Joe said this is coming up in the campaign. What do you think that means?
It's really funny. I have something now to look forward to watch on my own channel, which I think is hilarious.
I mean, you re-listen to old sessions, but
I do.
That, like, you're not involved with the slightest in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Because with any of the campaigns or anything that happens, like I'm involved with all of those. So I've seen it. It's just like archives. Like I'm going back to research for myself. But this is I can listen to this as fun content.
and again, that's what the whole point of bringing roll call back was just not like the old roll calls weren't fun. Don't that's not what I mean. But just this is just supposed to be very light. You and I going back and forth. And let me tell you, I thought this went great.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
All right, well, everyone, I believe this is what we're going to call it for the very first episode of Bringing Roll Call Back, and what an episode it was.
Bringing Roll Call Back! Yeah.
Bringing Roll Call Back. And also, I didn't mention this at the beginning, there's no set date for roll call. It'll just kind of be whenever we get players together who want to kind of discuss the campaigns and what's going on, we'll do it. There could be multiple episodes in a week. There might be a week or 2 gap between episodes. It'll just kind of depend on what people are feeling. But this is just something that we wanted to do to add a little bit more content and just talk about D&D because we're all big nerds here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I can say one thing is that they'll definitely be posted whenever they are done on the alternating week of the Evrand campaign on Wednesdays. And there'll definitely be a heads up about the campaigns on our Discord server for roll call on the Discord server. So if you'd like to know when a episode of roll call might be coming out, make sure that you check out the Discord link in the description down below. So that way you can be one of the first people to get a word about that, because there is a lot of good stuff still to come through these roll calls. Very excited. Thank you so much, Ryan, for hosting. You're a wonderful host. I'm very excited to see the rest of these as they come out. I'm stoked.
Hey, Joe. Yeah. I know it's always you. Can I do the outro?
You can. Go for it. Go for it.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming to Roll Call, and we'll see you next time.